और अब आपको सीधे ले चलते हैं हैदराबाद, जहां पर ग्लोबल एंटरप्रेन्योरशिप समिट में राज्यसभा सांसद डॉक्टर सुभाष चंद्रा मौजूद हैं और बोलने जा रहे हैं।
On my left is Mr. Ronnie Screwwala. I'm sure all of you know him as a creative producer, director, filmmaker, and now a social entrepreneur. He's been in the filmmaking industry for the last 25 years and had a very successful creative entrepreneur role in his life. And then I have my friend, she became friend yesterday, is Stephanie from Nollywood. She is a director, producer, as well as actress. She has been acting in not only Nollywood, but also in Hollywood. And I have beautiful young lady, Aditi Rao Hydari. She is born in this beautiful city. And after the show, you can probably ask her where to go in Hyderabad and enjoy yourself. At the same time, she has been in the creative world as an actress in Hindi cinema, Bollywood, as well as in southern India, in Telugu and other South Indian languages. So the way, friends, I have thought of this session is that if each one of you will make comment or 2 minutes, and then I will probably ask you questions, and then we will leave the audience to ask some questions. Is that okay with us? Okay. So why don't we start with Ronnie, the senior most?
Subhash, you have the conference, we should let the ladies start, right?
Okay. Okay, Aditi, why don't you make some comments?
Okay, firstly, good morning. I don't know if my mic is working. Am I audible? I tend to be soft. Okay. I'm actually really excited to be here, more so because in the last year or so, I've been acting for about 7 years now. 6, 7 years. And in the last year and a half or so, I've realized that there have been some huge changes, because as an actor in the last year and a half or so, I found that suddenly there was a kind of, I wouldn't call it a dry spell, but suddenly I felt like there was a churning and everything was changing around me. And I was like, what's going on? And then I started asking questions. Because I think when you first start in the industry, you're still trying to find your space, you're still trying to find your feet, you're still trying to understand what it is that you want to do. And I tend to be very idealistic. So I believe in this whole thing of art, and I'm part of the whole artistic world, and we're creating cinema and movies that live beyond our times. But then there's this whole economic aspect of it. And in India now, there's this huge digital influx that has happened, and I couldn't understand what it was all about and why there were these changes, why there were fewer films getting made, or why films on either very large scales or very small films were getting made, and this whole in-between film had dried up. So these were the questions that I was asking, and I'm actually very happy to be here today because I'm going to get to hear a lot from people who, Ronnie, Subhash sir and Stephanie, who are producers. I'm not a producer, I'm an actor. So very often I say, as an actor, I feel very dependent on what is given to me or what is put in front of me or the directors that come to me, etc. But having said that, I'm happy to say that as an actor of the new generation, I'm also empowered with the choices that I make, and there are a lot of choices in front of me. And there's a lot of great cinema being made today. But I feel that cinema, I feel that cinema needs more of an outlet. So there are many things that I've been hearing about. In fact, I spoke to Sameer Nair recently, and he was talking about the fact of why there is more digital stuff, less theatrical releases. Is because in India there are very few theatres. There are 10,000 theatres for a population of 1.2 billion or something like that, which just means that there are not enough theatres for people to go to. And I know that our country is completely movie crazy, but there are not enough theatres to go to, especially in the smaller towns. So there are all these things. Having said that, there is also this other thing where India is such a huge and diverse country, and there are so many different languages and cultures. And I've been asked this question very recently because I've worked with a legendary filmmaker called Mani Ratnam recently, And soon after that, I worked with another very well-known filmmaker called Sanjay Leela Bhansali. And so I was one of the lucky few who went from that set to this set. And I was asked this question non-stop about what is the difference. But I actually feel that filmmaking is really about the vision of the director, and it's not about geographical boundaries and language and caste and religion and all of the above. It's really about the vision of that filmmaker and the story and feelings really don't have language. And I'm very blessed that I'm getting this opportunity to work in these different industries, though primarily I do work in Hindi, but I do put in that extra effort because I want to work with these diverse filmmakers who have, you know, these, who have different voices, who have a different viewpoint, who have a different perspective. It also allows me to explore my own country, to explore various cultures within my country. And the more that I work like this, the more that I begin to understand about how it is being a girl working in this film industry, how it is, how cinema in theaters are somehow under some kind of, I wouldn't like to use the word threat, but there is some kind of threat.
No.
But
I don't
not
think
threat.
cinema is under threat.
No, it's not. And I actually feel that for the entertainment industry to flourish, cinema goers need that experience, and people who want to sit on their phones and watch something need that experience, and it has to come together, and we have to find a way for both to work. One can't kill the other. So it has to be together, and for me, cinema is magic. So somehow I feel like my generation, we have to make sure that we are putting out content, that we are bringing viewers into the theater. So
no, that is true, Aditi. When we started the television in India, there used to be only one film on television per week, and if Doordarshan, the national broadcaster, wanted to put a second film, the minister had to ask to the Prime Minister whether to put second film or not.
Really?
Yes, that was the case, and I am witness to it. And when we started the first private television station, the film industry felt that I'm going to close down the film industry by showing movies on television. But contrary happened. So now the satellite television contributes almost 50% of the movies' budgets, or maybe more than that. So anyway, Stephanie, let's understand how is it in your world. What do you feel, and what are your opening comments?
I'm so happy to be here. My name is Stephanie Linus. I'm a filmmaker and an actress from Nollywood. And I'm sure most of you have heard about Nollywood. We had so much influence from Bollywood. Yeah, actually, Bollywood influenced me into going into acting. Because I remember behind the house and I was dancing and all of that. I just knew that this was what I was going to do. And the Nigerian movie industry exploded in the late 90s, and we created this industry for ourselves, and over time we've seen the different challenges that has faced us. You had cinemas at the point where I started my career, we didn't have cinema culture at all, so it was just direct to DVDs, and people were watching these films in their homes, and and we've seen the influx of the cable network that came in, just like you came in, and got the Nigerian content and put it out, for a larger number of people to see it. So there's been a lot of different progress, and then digitalization technology sweeps in, and all we filmmakers are just trying to figure out how do we not get extinct? How do we keep up with the time and use the tool? Because those tools in front of us, we can't ignore them. We just need to make sure that it works for us. But the good thing about this time is that content is still king. So no matter how the technology goes, you as a creative person, if you're very creative, your content, you just have to use those technologies as a medium to reach your public. And it's also a wonderful thing that is happening this period with this conference, in the sense that they're also putting a lot of recognition of the women in the industry and what we're doing. And in my industry, women are doing a lot. I know when, as an actor, I didn't have, you were saying, you don't have a lot of control of what goes, your final image. And that's actually what inspired me to go behind the scene, because I'm like, oh, why did they leave my face like that? Why didn't they edit it like that? So instead of me complaining, let me go behind the scene and see if I'll be able to do this. And that's what I was able to do, go behind the scene, direct, and then show the representation of how I feel I should be represented also as a woman, also to have control of my narrative and everything. And that has also inspired a lot of female filmmakers to go into producing, to go into directing, to just say, okay, I just will not only be an actress, that I can also be much more. So it's an interesting time that we are. I'm not going to say much, because there's a lot of questions that we're in. It's an interesting time that we're in, and we're also looking at how we're all going to collaborate with one another, because the world is becoming very global. So, and I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
I'll ask you a few more questions on the women involvement. But Indian cinema may have very little women involved as a director, producer. But Ronnie, your comments.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks. Nice to be here. Maybe if I can just summarize in 2 minutes, about 16 years ago when we were running broadcast channels, I felt the need that we needed to get into movies, because that's how you can build a B2C brand. And our first 5 movies were a complete disaster. Second, I was the outsider. And I think for a lot of people here, and this is an entrepreneur conference, to understand when you're an outsider, how does it feel to enter a sector and industry, I think it should feel fine. Because a lot of people ask the question, but if I'm an outsider in a segment, I don't have domain knowledge. I don't think we had, and we didn't have an incestuous relationship. So I think we took the path less trodden, the more difficult path, a lot of learning from our 5 disaster failures that we started with. And then a movie happened called Rang De Basanti, which for us was a formula set for disaster. But we took that on because we thought we knew trends. And therefore that comes to the other thing. This sector is not any different from many sectors, because at the end of the day, if you can anticipate trends, you can anticipate storytelling, and you can tell it in a very different manner. So cut to 65 movies later, and 10 years later, I exited the space and sold the company to Disney.
And very successfully. Yes.
And then I had a 5-year non-compete. And then in the last 1 year, I've been observing the entire cinema space and storytelling space in India and everywhere else. And I think what has changed, and what changed maybe when we started a movie like Rang De Basanti, was that today, of course, we all go to the movies to get entertained, to get enthralled. But primarily, there's a sense of realism, a sense of context to our storytelling that has emerged over the last 1 to 2 years. So to me, I felt very encouraged to look at this and talk about what I would call 3 brandings. Because 1, stories that must be told. And I think that's the least service category in cinema today. Because, we don't have role models in this country. We need much more role models for the younger generation than we should have. And those movies can play such a big and important role in role models. And to me, those are the stories that must be told. Then there are the stories that you would love to tell. For example, I'm very passionate about a sport called Kabaddi, and I backed it in the early days. And so my first thing was I want to make a movie on Kabaddi, because if I can take that and make it even more evangelized. This conference evangelizes entrepreneurship. Movies can evangelize role models and do so much in terms of impact. And then there's the stories that we all go to the movies for. So I think that's the creative edge of why I think I want to start telling stories again. And if I can just interject in the economics of what has happened today, and I think Aditi brought up digital and television. Look, I think this is, as Subhash said, this is an era that will always coexist. Every time, from the time radio started till television started till big screen started, there'll always be the concept of a threat. And it's mostly an and not an or.
Yeah.
The big challenge in India versus everywhere else is, I think, our windows for releasing a movie to other platforms has shrunk drastically. And that is something we need to maybe watch out for, because if an audience can feel I can watch this in 6 weeks on another platform, your inertia to go to a movie theater is less and less.
Yes.
And that, I think, is the one foundation that is right now sliding horizontally, and we need to sort of debate that.
That's great. Aditi, when you made a comment that as an actress, you do not have much control over the creative work that is left to the director, and you also rightly commented that either there are movies which are made with very, very high budgets, and then there are very low budget movies with the content which is the stories, as Roni just said. And those films are not made with the A-grade actors and actresses. So they are very low-budget films. So my question to you are twofold. One is that would you like to work more with the very A-class heroes and blockbuster films, or would you like to work in a storytelling format, what Ronnie just said?
So I'll tell you very honestly, when I started, I do not belong to the film industry. I was not born in Bombay. I do not have relatives who are from the film industry. And the film industry can be quite dynastic. I'm not saying that like I'm cribbing, but I'm saying that as a fact. And so when I came in here, at the beginning, I was confused. I was given a lot of advice. I was told to do various things, which I did. And somewhere along the way, I got this, you know how it's like you taste blood. And you work with these amazing filmmakers, directors, and the kind of challenge that they pose in front of you is, I can't even describe it. And it's very addictive. And that's when I realized that, you know, actually, to me, nothing matters. I mean, of course, it's very important who you're working with because you want to get along with them, you want to have fun while shooting. All that is there. But I think primarily the most important thing over there when you are filming is your story, is your script, and is your director. Because the director, it's his vision or her vision. And as an actor, you breathe life into that vision. So it's really about the director. And I will always just chase that. I will chase the director, and usually a director will have an amazing team and will have an amazing script, usually. The reason I said you don't have creative control is also from my earlier years when I came in. When, you know, like, I remember even, and I was naive and I was, I really didn't know, but I remember saying things instinctively, like, you know, I don't think we should do this like this. And I was always told, you're really young, you don't know anything. We've been in the industry for whatever, 25 years or 30 years, and you don't know anything. So I'd be like, okay. And very often, like today, those people come and tell me, you know, you were right, but you were such a little
girl
thing that we didn't listen to you.
Didn't listen
and
to you.
Somewhere I feel, I wish that, you know, you could say things and it could be taken at face value rather than it become about seniority and hierarchy. So that's what I meant, you know, in terms of positions and hierarchy.
Okay.
So somewhere I think that is changing, of course, from 6-7 years ago that has changed. But I feel like as a producer, you do have complete control. And I'm saying this knowing very well that I don't think I want to be a producer. I'm too much of a drama queen. I like to be in front of the camera. If somebody were to put me behind the camera, I'd feel claustrophobia, and I don't know if I'd be able to do anything.
Yeah, very honest answer.
But somewhere I want to also be able to say stuff which now I can. I now can. I work with people who do, you know, who give me a voice, who listen to me regardless of how new I may be to be, relatively new I may be to be to the field.
Good, good.